Hello and welcome to a demonstration of creating an AWS EC2 instance with a ServiceNow ticket through the power of Ayehu NG. So what we're looking at now is our workflow view, and this contains our ServiceNow AWS workflow. This is going to be kicked off from a newly created ServiceNow ticket. So let's switch over to ServiceNow and create a ticket, which will then kick off that workflow. So you can see here, this is our custom form that we've built out called AWS request. This is going to have information that we're going to send to Ayehu NG. Ayehu NG is going to parse this information and is able to insert it dynamically within the workflow. So all we need to do here is hit request new AWS VM. We'll leave region, image ID, key pair name, group ID, and instant type as default. Hit submit. And now what NG is doing is it's actively listening to any of these ServiceNow incidents that are being created. It's picking up on this specific incident that we've created, and it knows based on trigger logic to trigger this specific AWS EC2 instance workflow based on what we've told it. So if we go back and show you on the Ayehu NG platform under live, we can see our workflow is running. This is our ServiceNow AWS workflow. We can see each activity that's taking place throughout that workflow. So now that it's been completed, let's go back to the workflow designer. We'll get a bit more into the details of what's happening on this workflow side. So very simple from the first step here in this activity. We're just creating a VM, and the information that we're using to create that VM is what's being referenced here. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the information that we're parsing from ServiceNow. We have an if-else branch to basically check for an error. If we were unable to create that VM, we update the ServiceNow ticket and end our workflow. But if we were able to create it, we then go from our left-hand branch to the right-hand branch. So this is essentially making sure that the instance is up and running. And if that instance is not up and running, we're waiting for it to be up and running, going back to the beginning of this specific flow. And once it is up and running, we're going in and querying the private IP address of the instance that was just created. And finally, we're updating the ServiceNow ticket with the private IP and all other information that's relevant to this creation. So if we switch back to ServiceNow, we can actually get more information about what had happened and the records that we've kept. You can see this is the same ticket that we just created, and now we have some activities that have been created from Ayehu NG about the process and where we were at throughout that entire workflow. As we're starting it out, it's new. We were able to successfully create the AWS VM. The ID is dynamically inserted into the ServiceNow ticket. And you can see once we were able to ensure that the instance was actually running, we went ahead and resolved the ticket and finally gave the private IP and instance ID here.